Hello, everybody. This is Susan Heaton-Wright from Superstar Communicator. Now, as you know, this is an Ask Susan session where people have been asking me questions. And this month, it is related to hybrid working. I should say that my area of expertise is communication and building trust, all of those things, those human interaction, so that we can work better. And earlier this month, we were lucky enough to have Jo Rigby, who came on. She works for Zappy, and she talked about how they work in a hybrid way with many people working remotely, and they have built trust, but they still have the human connection here. So I've got a few questions, please, and I'm hoping that this time that if people are logging in, if they're watching, they will be able to post comments or questions. But I've received quite a lot of questions this time, which is brilliant. So I will go through these. So first of all, what is hybrid working? That is a really, really good question. And thank you very much to the person who sent that. Hybrid working is, we didn't know about hybrid 2 years ago. We thought it was a type of car, didn't we? And yet this has been a term that has been adopted by many people, where there are people in the office working and then those working remotely. And the challenge really is how to make sure everybody is still communicating effectively, and in particular, how those people that are working remotely are not made invisible. So a standard thing that I can visualize is one of those boardroom meetings where there are people round a table, they're able to talk to each other side by side, and there are a couple of people dialing in, and there is a massive disadvantage there. So it really is a case with hybrid working that you make sure that it's a level playing field for everybody. So there isn't an advantage to being in the office. There isn't an advantage to somebody being able to speak to somebody else in the office, and also that those people that are dialing in are excluded. So some of these questions are related to that. So one question that I did receive from a client was, how can I make sure I'm visible even though I've decided to work remotely? Now, this person, highly qualified person, mid-career, made an active decision to not commute into London and to accept a role that was remote. However, he is very aware that he might be at a disadvantage, although there are elements of his role which means that he would be visiting clients for his own team and within the organization. He needs to make sure that he is still visible. So this is a good question. I would say that in virtual meetings, he needs to be very proactive. He needs to have, the basic things, that he has his screen switched on, that he is present, that the lighting, the sound, the Wi-Fi are all very effective. So he's able to make an impact and be able to share content, share ideas, make sure that he uses the chat, make sure he asks questions, make sure he's prepared. But also, there are going to be occasions when perhaps there are what I would call extracurricular events that happen. It could be that there is a departmental social, or he could suggest a social and actually commute into London. So he's beginning to get to know his colleagues. Also, it might be in his travels when he's visiting clients, there might be team members who are based remotely near there. So to be active that way, so he's beginning to get to know people. And finally, you can still have virtual meetings with people, and that is a way of starting to introduce yourself to the team. But it does involve quite a bit of work. I hope that answers that question. So Laura has sent a couple of questions in. She has a number of challenges, and that is that some of her clients have very different ways of communicating virtually and remotely. So she's got one who over communicates, so is sending repeated emails about particular aspects of the job, and they don't actually refer to her particular role. And she wonders how to manage that. Well, I mean, in the first instance, I would reach out to the client and say, this isn't my area. So I'm not quite sure why I'm receiving these emails. It might be that they're sending automized emails to everybody. And Laura, you're going to be more patient, but there might be some people who are annoyed by that. And there's nothing like annoying clients and contacts. So they might be really appreciative that that things are being oversent for whatever reason. But that is a great opportunity to pick up the phone or do a WhatsApp call or set up a virtual meeting, because you are building the business relationship with your client on another level. So her other question is that under communication with another of her clients, the founder of the company that she's a client for, they don't respond. They have set up Slack, which is a project management platform. And despite flagging up particular things or setting targets or deadlines, the founder is not responding. It's as though he's ignoring everything. What should she do? My feeling is that you should always try different methods of communication. It might be that he's really, really fed up with all of these pings coming on from Slack, that everybody is leaving deadlines and updates and things, and he's overwhelmed by it. He just can't digest everything. He might actually have switched off Slack, in which case any communication is not going to work with him. So see if there's another way that you can communicate with him. I always prefer picking up the phone, but I know that not everybody likes that. However, that is an immediate way of contacting him, using WhatsApp, arranging a virtual call, messaging, leaving a voicemail message on, or even a video message, either on LinkedIn or WhatsApp. Make it human. He might not be aware that he's switched off Slack, or it might flag up that there needs to be another way to keep in contact with him. Okay, so next I have, how do you onboard new employees or employees who have never met each other? I think that this is a really, really important one, because particularly for people, young graduates that are just joining a company, one of the things is that you want to understand the culture, you want to get to know the other employees, particularly the people that are on the same level as you. I think that it's really, really important, the idea of having social events or things that are not related to work, because in the old days we might meet somebody in the kitchen when you're making a cup of coffee, or the old-fashioned bun run, when somebody would go round and see what bun they wanted on Friday from the local bakery, those sorts of things. And that's a way that we connect with each other. So if it is that somebody steps up and says, right, we're going to have drinks this Friday at this venue after work, and those people who work remotely, if you want to join us, so you make sure that you are including everybody in it. But also, I should flag up something that I did recently when I was over in Dubai, because one of the activities that I delivered was on team building. Now, this is not team building as in Go Ape or doing some extreme sport, which is okay for the leaders because that's their thing. But for some people, it's shaming, they're terrified, they're quite upset. I mean, things where they're facilitated activities which are fun, but it encourages people to talk, get to know each other, build trust. Also, I don't think that so one of the things that seems to happen when we're in a recession, when money is tight, is that training and development, that gets cut. And yet, if it is well facilitated training, such as I deliver, just blowing my trumpet here, you are getting people to talk to each other and you work with each other and they're getting to know each other. If it's well done, that is a way that you can onboard new people so that they feel more confident, but everybody else begins to get to know them. All right. Oh, so I've got, Nick. So I've heard from Nick, and I hope you can read this. I think it's very difficult to maintain trust across a hybrid versus office environment. Views of the future in the business will be developed face to face. The hybrid workers will inherently become completer finishers because the main decisions will have already been taken. In the public sector, hybrid is so often the choice between the sofa and the Coronation Street. I love it. They simply were not available to get so many people out of Kabul who have now been hurt and killed by the Taliban. Really, really good point. And absolutely, I totally agree. It's about trust. And even if you have people that are working remotely, you've got to try and get them together, even if it's an informal situation. I talk about team building. As I mentioned, Nick, I do not mean those things where everybody's driving a go-kart, but really having the opportunity for people to have a chat, get to know each other, do activities where it is building trust, because we are human beings. And for one or two people, it is very, very difficult. If they're always working remotely, they're not able to build that trust unless they work very, very hard and are prepared to get in their car or a train so that they can get to know each other face to face. So thanks for that, Nick. Now, recently, I know one person, and I know he's watching, it's not you, Nick, who on this call, who was recruited virtually. And he, after 4 months, he arranged with the business owner to meet up, and they met up sort of halfway between each other's houses, and they spent a day together just wandering around, walking. I think that there was a discovery walk in the town that they went to, and it built the business relationship. And as a result of that, they're working even more efficiently. We can think that things like having a walk or doing a fun thing or drinks after work are not part of work, but they really are, because we work in teams. We are human beings and we crave other human beings because we're social animals. So we've got socializing. These were a couple of really, really good questions from someone else. So socializing, training new employees to fit into the company culture and establish company values. And also managing people. These are comments that she said. I think that in some ways we've almost covered that with onboarding people, it's really important to see how you can introduce people to the culture, and particularly with younger people who are perhaps new graduates, understanding the culture, because they've been at university. We were all young once, and there is a shift from when you're at university, particularly being on time and looking reasonable, even if you're working remotely. So I feel for leaders and managers, they need to step up and start thinking about how they can do these extracurricular things. Now, when we had Jo Rigby on the last session, she said some great things. One of them was that on Wednesday they get a pizza delivery. So anybody that's in the office is sitting next to somebody else enjoying some pizza. I just hope there's no pineapple and ham on some of the pizzas, because I'm sure that people would be enraged by that. But also arranging to meet people for a walk. Certainly, that is something that I do, and it's very informal, but certainly with some of my clients, that has been a really, really good way to build trust. So it's getting back to that word again. So also, this person asked about the generational differences, that there are boomers. Oh, I hate using these terms, but perhaps older people who might be in more management or leadership roles who want to be in the office, and they want everybody to be in the office. And it might be that generation X and millennials who might have some responsibilities with childcare, they might be really enjoying working from home. It's more flexible. But of course, there are the challenges of becoming invisible. But this particular contact said to me that she felt that Generation Z, so people that have just left university, they want to be in the office. Now, I can absolutely understand that, particularly if they have spent their time at university working remotely, that they want to be in the office, they want to be surrounded by people. So how can you manage that? Now, one of the things, and you might have some other ideas about this, I think that it is worthwhile, even if people want to work remotely, and legally you have to allow people to do that now, from my understanding of law. However, flexible learning, but it would be interesting to know whether legally, particularly with existing employees, whether you have to insist that they come in at least one day a week. In which case, if you are a leader, making sure that everybody's in on one day in a team would mean that there is an opportunity for people to get to know each other. But I still think that it is building a bigger structure. So we're not just thinking about being in the office, but other opportunities for people to build trust, get to know each other, build those business relationships. So Nick says, there are lots of opportunities to learn skills online and demonstrate a can-do attitude. Absolutely. As you know, Nick, I have delivered multiple virtual workshops that are very, very interactive to lots of businesses worldwide. I'm now up to 80 countries in the world that I've delivered content to, and growing, which absolutely. And actually learning skills online can be a really good thing if it's well facilitated, because you can learn some of those skills. But there is nothing like shadowing somebody else, is there, in the office, seeing how they deal with a client, or how they respond to a request or a complaint. So finally, I think that we need to understand different needs. I know that there was somebody else that asked me a question regarding an employee. They wanted to have everybody in the office on one day a week. I think it was Wednesday. And this particular person said, well, I only want to come in on Tuesday and Thursday because I'll have to sort out childcare. And absolutely, I understand that. But this particular employee had been in the office before 2020 all the time. What do we need to do? My personal feeling is that the person who's working remotely, is going to be at a huge disadvantage if they don't come in to the office when the rest of the team are there. And there needs to be flexibility all round. And perhaps this is the only day that the office can fit everybody in, because it might be other departments are using the office space on other days. So I think that that person, I feel, needs to think about what disadvantages there are going to be for their career if they insist on coming on other days when the rest of their team aren't there. Nick, I'm sure you will have a comment about that. But let's finally get back to the other question about different generations. I think that we need to understand the needs of different generations. The fact that possibly leaders and managers are worried that unless everybody's in the office, they won't know what everybody's doing. In which case, what other things can you put in place from a communications point of view so everybody's kept in touch? How can you build trust, and how possibly can you monitor progress and efficiency? But for Generation Z, you know, people that have just graduated, thinking about how they can be onboarded, how they can get to know everybody, what activities could you do outside the office that could help them? And for those people who are wanting to work remotely, making sure that they are still part of the team, and to encourage them, see if there's any way that either they could come in one day a month even, or to have events outside the workplace so that they can still get to know everybody else. Are there any comments there? Because I think we've covered quite a lot, haven't we? And I believe that hybrid working, it might change in the way that it's delivered, but there are going to be people who are working remotely now forever, and there are going to be people that prefer to work in the office. But we've got to come up with the most efficient and effective way of communication so we can build those business relationships. So next month, well, actually in March, I had to do this a day late. I am focused on doing break the bias, which is the, let's not make it wonky, which is the focus for International Women's Day. That is the that is the theme. And so the next LinkedIn Live is going to be a discussion with somebody from Keynote Women Speakers on how important it is to represent people that are not, with respect, Nick, always white, middle-aged men on panels and as speakers, that to have a more diverse speaker lineup is really, really important. And then later in the month, we will have a break the bias question and answer like this. So before I finish, I know that Nick's got another comment. Nick says, I think the path to well-being starts with knowing yourself, and then knowing other soft skills are developed face-to-face. Yes, absolutely. And thank you for all of your comments, Nick, in this. So until next time, and remember, this is being recorded. This is Susan from Superstar Communicator. If you would like to discuss how you could build your communications and structure for a hybrid workplace, please feel free to reach out. I've got a number of ways that you can do this, and I can coach and train people in this. Thank you. Bye-bye.